So welcome back. Third lecture. So here is a recap of the previous episode, if you've not been here. So the first episode was basic on planar maps. The second episode was enumeration of Boltzmann planar map with a very lovely computation. And this is the basic outcome of last lecture. So we were given a weight sequence, which is just a sequence of real numbers, non-negative real numbers, such that there is at least one, which is non-zero for I bigger than 2. And we will use this sequence to give a weight to any planar map. So if you are given a finite planar map, always bipartite in this course so that all the faces have even degree, you give a weight to this map, which is just the product of the weights of Q for each face, where you put for index half the degree of the face, right? So this gave us a Boltzmann measure, which is a priori a possibly infinite measure on the set of all planar maps. And we're saying that this measure is admissible if, morally speaking, it was not exactly the definition, but if, morally speaking, the total measure of the set of all planar maps is finite. More precisely, we were saying that this partition function WLP is finite. Let me take this as an opportunity to remind you the notation. So L here is always the half degree of the root face, half degree of the root face. What is the root face? The root face is the face on the right of the root edge, this guy. And we had the convention that on the root face, we don't put any weight. The root face does not come with any weight. And if the map comes with a distinguished face, which we call the target face, half degree of the target face. So a target face can be any other face different from the root face, could be this one. Or it could be this one. I don't know, it's another face. And if we distinguish this as the target face, again, we do not count any weight for this face. And so if we sum the weights of all the maps having a boundary of size 2L, of perimeter 2L, meaning a root face of degree 2L, and a target face of perimeter 2P, we sum the total weight. This was the definition of this disk partition function. Okay? And if this disk partition function is finite for one LP, or equivalently for all LP, then we said that the weight sequence Q was admissible. So it may seem as a complicated notion for a weight sequence, but we gave a practical criterion to decide whether a weight sequence was admissible or not. So once you're given the weight sequence Q, you form this generating function, fq of x, which is 1 plus this binomial coefficient qk x to the k. Very simple function. So in particular, if Q takes only finitely non-zero values, like if Q is, I don't know, some Q1, Q2, Q3, and then all zeros, then this guy is just a polynomial. Okay? And so to decide whether Q is admissible or not, you check whether this function fq has a fixed point, a positive fixed point or not. If it has no fixed point, then the weight sequence is non-admissible, meaning the total weight of planar maps is infinite. If not, if it has a fixed point, then denote the smallest one by zq. So this is fq. Fq of zq is equal to zq. Then if so, we had a very nice and neat and universal and all the nice adjectives you want for the disk partition function with perimeter 2L target face 2P. That's just half, something that depends on L and P in a very nice fashion, here as well. And this exponential coefficient for ZQ to the L plus P. I tricked it a little bit compared to last time because I put a 4 to the minus L and a 4 to the minus P here and a 4 to the L plus P here, just to indicate that this is more or less polynomial in L. This is decaying like 1 over square root L. And this is also is polynomial in P. This is decaying like 1 over square root P, which so that you see in this formula that the exponential part is really this 4zq to the L plus P, right? And we also add this lemma that if you take the disk partition function of all maps with a boundary of size 2L plus 1, no target face, then this ratio goes to, as L goes to infinity, goes to this exponential factor, this 4zq. And this will be useful later. Okay, that's the recap of last time. Questions? No? Okay, so today what we'll do is we'll start from some very deterministic exploration of maps, and then we'll see that this deterministic exploration in a way are how to explore a map edge after edge, discovering face after face, step by step. And we'll see that if we look at this exploration in the random setup of Boltzmann map, then this exploration turns out to be a very nice Markov chain. And this will be the beginning of our journey in the peeling process. Okay? So let's start. So deterministic peeling exploration. So what do I mean by an exploration? So I have a goal in this lecture is to use all the chalk that Elhanan broke this morning. I'm not sure I will make it. Okay, so no randomness so far. Imagine that you are given a map, and let me draw a nice map, this one. You're given a rooted map, up, that's the root edge. For those who don't want to copy the map, there is an example, which is not this one, but almost the same in the lecture notes. So you can focus on the lecture notes if you prefer. We are at chapter 4, if my memory is good. Up. Okay, so assume that this is my map. That's my map, that's my root edge. And for the moment, I have no target face, but I have the root face, the face adjacent on the right of the root edge. And assume you are given what we call E naught. E naught is a subset of dual edges of my map M, which is connected, and which contains the root face. Okay? So such an object can look like this. And maybe this one as well, this loop.
It contains at least one edge of
No, I mean, it has this red point, and then it's made of dual edges in a connected fashion. Okay? It must have this point. This is the starting point, if you wish. Okay? So this will, E stands for explored, and so now I'm stealing Jean-François's idea. So imagine that your map is a castle, a haunted castle, that you don't know. It's Saint-Flour Grand Séminaire. That's the map of Saint-Flour Grand Séminaire. Okay? You start here and you don't know the map of the castle in which you're living, right? It's totally unknown to you. So you're here, and that's the rooms of your castle. Tell me if I'm distorting your... That's the room of the castle. You may have some ghost here. Maybe your target face, I don't know. And you want to know the map of your castle. But how can you explore your castle? Well, in every wall, you've got a door, okay? And you say, starting from this face, I want to go through this door. So you open the door, and you get to this new room. And again, this new room has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 walls. And a priori, you don't know where these walls lead to in the castle, and you decide to open this door, and oh, surprise, you're in the same room. But you could not know that beforehand, no? And then you're here, you say, oh no, I don't want to go here, I come back here at my starting point, and I open that door, and I discover that face, and so on and so forth. So these red edges are really the doors that you have opened in your castle, right? So that's the stage of your exploration at this stage. And you want to now draw the map of the castle you know. And so we will denote this map by E, like explored map, without the not. And the E will be obtained from this guy by just taking all the rooms and gluing the rooms, or the faces, along the dual edges that you have visited. So let me draw it for you. So we started from the root face. So, okay, we know. We went to that room. Okay, we know. We went to that one as well. We went to that one. Then on the top, we went to... let me complicate it a little bit, this one. Then I claim that we have this. Then I will come back to this. Then we have that room in which we know that we have this. And then we have explored this big room here. So we have explored something like that. And this room is something up, something like that. Okay? And that's an unexplored region. And in red, let me put again the part of the castle that you have explored. Is that it? Okay? So the thing that you see in hatch here are the unexplored region of your castle. And we'll say that this is the explored map so far. Why? Because, okay, let me tell again, how do I get from here to here? I take my scissors and I cut along all the white edges that are not traversed by a red edge. So in particular, I cut here. That's why here I've got this cut here. I cut this along here. So this part is removed. I've got a hatch region like that. And I cut along here as well all these white edges which have not been explored. Okay, is that clear? Okay. So that's the part of the castle that you have explored. And notice that on this E, on this map E, I don't know that this edge is glued to this one. I could have drawn this like that for you with the good number of edges. I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 edges. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 6 edges, you see what I mean? 6 edges here. So I'm really insisting on the fact that I don't know what are the gluing, the adjacency relation between the edges that I have here. But let me still draw it like that, so that the the relationship with this drawing is clear. Okay? Is that clear? Yes?
In the inner part, did you miss two, that one?
Here? But if you take your scissors, do it for real. Cut here and cut there. Then this falls down. Totally.
Inside in something you haven't explored, you don't know anything.
I don't know anything. It's really, that's the map of your castle. That's the map that you've explored so far. You have not opened that door, so you don't know what is inside here. It's totally, and so there are these two dual drawings, and we'll say that E is a submap of M. So E is a submap of M. In which sense? In the sense that if I want to go from E to M, what should I do? In the sense that M can be recovered from E by gluing inside so we'll call these guys, the hatch region, the holes. So we've got two holes in this drawing. Inside the holes of E, the proper map with a boundary. What do I mean by that? I refer to page 57 of the lecture notes. So if you look at figure 4.2, you have the picture of a map with a hole. The hole is this big cycle with the gray part inside. And I'm illustrating what is the gluing operation of a map inside this hole. So you see that, so here, let me illustrate here, but you can have a better look at the lecture notes. Here in this hole, the one that you see here, if you were to glue this map, so you glue this map inside, gluing, I mean, you then identify this edge, these two edges, and these two edges. That's the rest of your map here. Then what you get exactly what you should find inside your map M. Okay? So inside this hole, that's one hole, Then if you glue this map inside this hole, you recover this part. But you may have more complicated ways of gluing. For example, you may glue maps which have a boundary which is not simple. So imagine a hole like that. And imagine you glue a map with one edge here. So this map with a boundary, the one that you see inside, the one in blue here, that's a map whose boundary, the external face, is not simple because you've got a pinch point here and there. But you can still imagine that you glue this map inside a hole of perimeter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And after performing this gluing, what do you get? You get this thing inside the map. Is that clear? The gluing operation? So to be extremely rigorous, and I mentioned it, but I will not be precise about it later on. If you want to glue a map inside a hole, what you should distinguish an oriented edge in the hole so that the map that you glue inside has an oriented edge so that the root face is on its right, and so that you glue these two edges together. You need a routing convention to route the maps that you glue inside the holes. Okay? Is that clear? So for example, the map here I just drew, but here there is something like that pending inside the map and that you need to glue. Okay? Is that clear? What I mean by being a submap? So if you don't like this gluing thing, just really think of in terms of this red exploration. So notice two properties of the holes of a submap. By definition, the holes, they are simple. Simple meaning that the boundary of those holes cannot have pinch point. That's impossible. Look at this. That's a simple cycle. And again, also the boundary of the other hole is a simple cycle. Okay? So the holes are simple, and two holes cannot share a vertex. That's impossible as well. You see here, this hole and this hole, they are really disjoint in terms of vertex set. Okay? All right, so let me now give you what is formally a pinning exploration. So a pinning exploration of a map, so we'll have two versions of it, but the first version is just a pinning exploration. So that's not the good definition, but let me state it anyway. It's this growing red subset here, a growing red subset of E0, E0 0, E0 1, up to E0 n, such that E0 0 is just made of the root face, and when you go from E0 I to E0 I plus 1 by adding one edge, one dual edge. Okay? And so that this guy is the full dual map. Okay, so really, you have your map. You start with the map, again, is the map of your castle. You start from this face, and you explore the map of your castle by going through doors, through edges, one by one, and you say that each time you cross a new wall, then you add one edge in this sequence of increasing E0s. Okay? Okay. So to be more rigorous, or maybe better, before going into the details, let's make an explicit example. No, yeah, okay. Maybe I should take your.
With the ordering of the exploration effect.
That's a very good point, which I will get into in 2 minutes. But before treating an example, let me throw at you a couple of notations, and then we do the example. Okay. I'm hesitating. Should I or should I not? Okay, no, let's do an example first. Okay. And I'll throw the notation in the same time we do the peeling of this map. Okay? So that's Jean-François's map, right? So let's see what I mean by a peeling exploration of this map. So you start with the root face. Okay, so E0 is just the root face. So what is the corresponding submap, which I will denote by E0? That's a submap of M. So let me tell you again, how do I get E0 from E0, 0? Then I cut along all the edges, white edges, which are not crossed by red edges. In this case, I cut everything, I just keep the root face, which is just a quadrangle. That's E0. Okay? Now, let's see. I want to go to the coffee room. So I'm here. I add this edge, meaning that I have been through that door. Okay, so E1 not is this guy here. What is E1? The submap in M. So let me draw it for you and let's see if you agree. That's the map obtained like that. You all agree? And there is a single hole here. That's a single hole on the boundary of this guy. And that's a single hole here. Yep.
Do you need to keep track when you're exploring? Do you need to keep track of where the holes are?
Yes, in E1, I know where the holes are.
But the object E1 contains them?
Yes. Holes, they are, I know that they're holes. So let's do 2 more steps to see what we can do. Okay, let's go back on my footsteps and let's try that door. Okay, so what is E2 in this case? Well, E2 in this case is just this. And the unique hole is this. All right? And let's do a more complicated step now. Let's assume I'm here. I will need 2 more, okay? I'm here and I go through that door to explore that face. Okay? So I still have some room here. E3. What is E3? E3 is something like that. No. Something like that. Is it? We will see in a minute. Seems okay. And hey, true, but no. Because, yes, I know that this guy maybe share a verse. No, because take your sizers. Where are you, Pascal? Yeah. I heard it's you. No, you take everything with your sizer. You cut everything. If you cut along the white, then this is pending. There are no identification of the vertices. If you cut everything with your sizers, or if you prefer, you know that all these faces are quadrangles, right? And the only thing that I do, I take my quadrangles and I glue them along the edges that have been traversed by a red one. So I glue here, and I glue here. So I have only 3 gluings. 1, 2, 3. That's it.
The cyber-computing process is the number of edges in the original graph?
In this notation, yes, after n steps, I have explored n dual edges. Okay? But let me now come to a complicated step. So I'm in this map. Okay? I am in this map, and let's. Yes?
How do you know the point in the outside face is in a quadrangle?
This one?
Yeah.
Because imagine again, you're in your castle. You're in that room. You take this door. You enter. this room, what do you know? You know that this room is connected to this one through that door, which is exactly this. And you look around you and you see 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see that you're in a quadrangular room that is, so far, the only information you know is that room is linked to the previous one by that edge. So it's exactly this. So far, with your exploration of the map of the Grand Séminaire, you only know this information. Okay? We will come exactly to this point of this. What is the discovery of the vertex? This will come soon. But let me make one more step, a complicated one. Now imagine that I'm here. So I'm in that room. I'm in that room here. I just came from this. So I see a first door here and a second door here. This one. This door. And let's assume I'm going through that door, meaning that I'm adding this edge. Where do I land? I land on the original room I started with. So I land on this room, and where exactly on this room? Here. So in fact, when I do this, it turns out that this room is actually a quadrangular room, so that the other side of the room is linked actually to this one. And now I glue. And what do I see now? I see that in this exploration, when I have performed these 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, I have got 2 holes, one here and one on the external face. I should have taken colors. I have got 2 holes. Okay? That's one hole, and that's another hole. Is that okay? So let's see now, how I can discover vertices. And let's make a very simple example. I'm not taking the straightest road, but this is important to understand. So imagine I am in this map. Okay? That's my starting point, and assume I discover this edge, then this edge, then this edge, and I'm on the point of discovering that edge. So what do I have at this stage? At this stage, the explored map is just this. Oops. The explore map is this. What happens if I add this edge? Then I know that I need to glue this on this. So it's as if you deform the quadrangle like that. And when I glue, I know that this is a vertex. Why? Because around, if in my castle I go around, I'm starting in that room, and then I take first that door, then that door, then that door, then that door, I'm coming back to my starting point. I've done a full loop, a full turn, full cycle. And so I know that this guy is a vertex. So in other words, vertices, you discover new vertices in your map when you glue, in this spinning process, when you glue 2 edges which are adjacent on the boundary of a hole. Okay, now let me formalize this a bit more. And so a point that was really dubious is how to add the edges one by one. Yep. No, because if you prefer, this is a hole of perimeter 0. How do I know it? Because, okay, just before I knew this. I'm taking all the questions until you're very happy, because this is really the most important part of this lecture. I know what is the perimeter of this guy. Okay, Pascal? And everybody. So if I know that's my current exploration of the castle, and take that door, and I tell you, oh, that door leads to this room. That means I have to glue these two guys, and so I know that here I have no room for the perimeter. This must be a perimeter 0. It is not the case if I were to tell you, okay, if I were to tell you this door leads to this. Then it's not at all the case, because I need to glue this on this. Or if you prefer, I would have drawn the thing like that. And this door leads to this one. And here I would have had perimeter 1. I know, but okay. Okay, so let me formalize that, and we will come back many, many times on this. So if you have not catch everything so far, it's not a big deal. Yep.
Maybe you can say that the submap is a bit misleading, because the submap can be bigger than the map.
Yes, it's not a submap in the sense that it is a subgraph. It's really a submap in the sense that if I fill in the holes of the submap, I can get the map. Yeah. It's not in the graph sense. The notion I prefer is really this one, but we will see that this one is not sufficient to do the peeling process. So how do I pass from E, not yep? Yeah.
In the example there,
Yep.
we have a hole inside,
Yep.
and we didn't discover that vertex inside.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, this was a totally unknown region. You could have 17 vertices inside. You didn't know at that stage.
And in the exploration process, so at one point you are going to enter that room and see
Yes.
every
Yes.
room that shares that.
Yes and no. Yes for the first. You'll see. So how do I pass from EI naught to EI plus 1? So the idea is really, you imagine that at some point you have explored some submap. That's your submap that you have explored, so you have, okay? That's the submap that you've got explored so far, and you've got holes. Okay? In the castle version of Jean-François, that's the part of the map of the castle that you have explored so far. The part of the castle that you can draw. And we will assume that we've got a function, which we will call an algorithm. A is an algorithm that looks at the part that you have got explored. So the algorithm looks at EI, the map that you've explored so far, not EI naught. EI, this submap, and now tells you, you want to go through that door. So what do I mean? You've got edges on the boundary of the holes. Okay? And let me call the EI with a star. That's the boundary of all the holes of EI. So that's the blue thing that you see here. That's the blue thing that you see here. Okay, and this algorithm looks at AI and outputs an edge in the boundary of EI, in the boundary in the union of the boundary of the holes. So for example, it looks at this and tells you, I want to open that door. Or I want to open that door. Or I want to open that door. Okay? It outputs an edge. Okay, let's say this one. Right? As a deterministic function of EI, yes? No, this will come next week. No, this is deterministic function. The algorithm deterministic. Come on, if I add a layer of randomness here, they will be killed. No. Deterministic. Okay?
So we are supposed to survive here.
If I do survive, yes. So how do you go now from EI not to EI plus 1 not, or it's the same from EI to EI plus 1? Well, you add the edge dual to the edge you want to explore, to A of EI. So you look at this edge in the map M, and you add whatever the edge leads to. So again, look at this picture. This picture, if we have this, as this stage, that's E3, and probably the algorithm tells you, okay, I want to explore this door. I want to go through here. So you look in the map, and you say, okay, that edge corresponds to this one. Let me add this dual edge to the red stuff. And let's see the effect on the submaps. And the effect is gluing this onto this. Okay? So, and we will call this operation, we peel the edge A of EI. Okay, yes?
On there, before you draw the left vertical edge, the graph that you have is EI E3 not? On the left.
Before?
You had E3, but what E3 not there?
E3 not is just these three edges.
Okay.
E3, okay, the E3 not, the not version is here to make you really understand what are the objects. The objects I want to keep in mind are the EI, not the EI not. Because the EI not, they live inside M. And for example, in the EI not, if I give you EI not, I give you this. But that's not what you want. You want to know that, for example, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 doors to explore. And this is not contained in this information. So you really want to get what is really the map that you have explored by gluing the faces along this red exploration. Okay?
So I guess the question is, why did you introduce the limitation to the EI not?
Because I'm a bad teacher. If you consider that it was not helping you understand the notion, then it's my bad. Yes?
Just to confirm, your algorithm should not depend on the order how you...
It's really deterministic. I give you a EI, I give you a drawing like that, and the algorithm tells you, take that edge. Deterministic function. You have a list for all possible submaps, and for all possible submaps, it gives you an edge on the boundary of a hole.
So only submaps, not the whole history.
Only submaps, yes. But, yeah. It's equivalent, but yes. Okay? So now let me focus on the effect of peeling one edge in the EI version. Yep. Let's see.
So on this drawing, you did not bother to draw the cells, but it's just to simplify the drawing, and
Yes.
it has no meaning.
No, the cells, yes, they are here,
But
up.
it depends on what you have explored precisely.
No, it's exactly his question. It's a deterministic function of what you see at this stage.
Yeah, but
on the inner.
The walls that you have just been drawing.
Yes, the map is the thing the explored map is the thing in white that you see here.
Just to have a simpler drawing. Okay.
Okay, so let's see the effect. Yep. It's good, because I thought I had not prepared enough material, but clearly I had. But you need to understand this. So.
And each room, you can have possibly many doors, and you just choose one.
Yes, it's even more than that. In the castle, say you have explored the first floor. Okay, it's a two-dimensional castle. So you have explored some part, and you know that there is a hole here that you have not explored. There is another hole here that you have not explored. And this algorithm tells you, oh, take this single door. So you may have many holes like this, many holes, and the algorithm tells you, I want you to explore that door. Maybe next time, it will tell you, I want you to explore this one. So the edges, you may jump from one hole to another. So it's really.
So I assume, since the algorithm is going to explore the whole map, I assume exploring all the doors inside the room you are, it's like redundant.
So that's a very good point, and that will be the strength of our approach. We will see that here the algorithm is a parameter. And a parameter, there are many algorithms that you can think of, and for a single map, you can explore the map in different fashion depending on the algorithm that you have chosen to explore your map. And this will be key in our approach. But so far, think of the algorithm being fixed. Another one? Feel free. You're killed. Should I proceed? Okay, so effect of peeling, and now this is really mind-blowing. You'll see. Okay, effect of peeling one edge on the explored map. So imagine that's your explored map. Your root edge is somewhere here, and you've got holes that have not been explored. If you prefer, seen from the inside, there are some doors which are blue that you don't know what is behind that door. Okay? So the algorithm selects for you one door to explore, and you will add this dual edge. Then you see that there are two types of things that can happen. First type, if you go through that door, you discover a new room, a new face of degree, say, 2p. What does that mean? That means that after going through the door, you have a new room here of perimeter 2p. Okay? That's a new room in the sense that it's really a new room, a new face. It's a well-defined sense. Okay? You may have stuff like that. And we will call this event CP. C like center, P like you discover a face of degree 2p. C, 2p, CP. Okay? But
We will understand the meaning of center later.
no. You want to change the letter?
No, just you say C like center, and I don't see in which way it is the center or something.
You know, my mind is complicated sometimes. It's center P. Or you discover, or you go through an edge, and arrive on a face of EI already. What does that mean? That means that you take that door, you wanted to go to the coffee room, but bad luck, you enter here. And that's toilets. What does that mean geometrically? Probably. Now I understand why Elhanan didn't want to be filmed, but okay. So what does that mean geometrically? That means that actually this picture, geometrically, was looking like something... was looking like... Will I manage to do that? Yes, I think so. Up. Was looking something like that. So you had one hole here. You had the other hole there, probably. Okay, and you had this boundary here. Okay, the root edge was here, and you wanted to go through that door, which is this one. Okay? So you open the door, and then it turns out that in the map, these two edges, this one and this one, are glued, and you end up here in the toilet. Okay? We will call this event, we will measure, so that's the edge you want, the edge you want to peel. We will measure the boundary that you have. Oh, notice something very important. If you go through this edge and you arrive on a face of EI, it must be a face which is on the boundary of the same hole. You cannot enter here, because otherwise your castle will not be planar, right? So it's really something that if you exit through here, you can only enter through your castle from a face which is on the same hole, or adjacent on the same hole. So if the boundary of the hole you were exploring is 2L, then the part that you have on the right, or on the right of the peeled edge, is denoted by 2K, and the part that is on the left is 2K plus 1. So what is 2K plus 1? That's the perimeter of this part, and 2K is the perimeter of this part. I'm not counting these two edges. So what is the compatibility relation? Of course, I must have K1 plus K2, well, 2K1 plus 2K2 plus 2, these two edges that I have not counted, must be 2L. So K1 plus K2 plus 1 is L. All right? And we will call such events, Rémi, don't ask why, we will call these events G, like gulp, G, K1, K2. Yes?
Doesn't matter which way you deform? Like, if you deform clockwise, what if I, like, fold it other way?
No, it does not depend. Here, I could have said, oh, that's deformed that way, but don't forget that our castle is drawn on the sphere. Yes?
So is it true that in this process the number of holes only increase?
Only?
The number of holes only increase or holes?
No. Very good question. No. Let's see, and I was going to do that. Let's see a particular. Assume I have a hole of perimeter 2. I'm in my map. I've got holes. That's a big hole. And I have here a hole of perimeter 2. Assume my algorithm wants to go through here. And assume now that I have an event which I call, so that's 2, perimeter 2. What could happen? Or what is an event C4, for example? An event C4, then you plug inside here an octagon. Okay? But what would be an event G00? The event G00, K1 plus K2 plus 1 is indeed equal to 1. The event G00 is these two edges are glued together, and here I've got perimeter 0, perimeter 0. And exactly as Pascal was asking, I have got the creation of two vertices here. And this edge now is an edge that I have peeled. Okay? So you see that I may have disappearance of a hole of perimeter 2 if the two sides are glued together. Okay? Other questions? Yes?
In G00, you don't keep track if you're entering a new room that you already explored, or if you're entering the same room where you were.
You didn't know before. Again, imagine in your castle that this is unexplored. When it is unexplored and you want to enter through that door, you open the door, you don't know what you are going to discover. It may very well be the case that, again, toilets, that you've got a room here. Well, yeah, number of participants divided by 10. You didn't know. All right? Yes?
So can the first event also remove a hole? Can the first type of event also remove a hole?
C, no. With C, you cannot remove a hole. It's only this G00. All right, yes? Yes.
Can we go outside and we end up inside of a hole?
No. If you get outside of this hole, you can only either discover a new room, new phase, or enter a room that was adjacent on this boundary, not another hole. It's not possible. Because imagine that, okay, there is a planar map hidden behind you. There is a planar map, M, that you are exploring. So if you had this dual edge, you see that this dual edge cannot be linked to this one because this would not be a planar map. It's not a proper drawing. You have edges crossing. It's a topological reason.
But in the planar map, is there something similar with theorem of Roe or something like that?
With what?
In the continuous case, I see this thing just like some theorem of Roe, the theorem of intermediate value. We can see that we cannot go across, but
No, here it's really a topological reason, really two-dimensional. If this is on the sphere, then make a few drawings to convince yourself. If this is drawn on the sphere, then this edge can only be linked to a new face or to an edge on the boundary of the same hole. All right? So since I'm still on the first page, let me turn the page. All right. So there is in the lecture notes, oh gosh. In the lecture notes on my webpage, there is an exercise where you see Jean-François's map and the edges that I had one by one, and you have to do the full peeling just to get a glimpse of what it is. All right. So we have understood. So in particular, if I want to describe for you an exploration sequence of a map, if I give you the algorithm A, then I can fully describe the sequence for you if I give you only the sequence of events CK, G, K1, K2, CL, blah, 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 blah. If I only giving you these events, and if you know the algorithm A, then you know what is this sequence. Why? Because you know how to pass from EI to EI plus 1. Because if you know EI and you know A, you know which edge you're going to explore. And if I tell you which kind of event you're facing, you know what you have to perform to get to EI plus 1. So you can alternatively see such a sequence as a sequence of variable taking space in this CK, G, K1, K2. All right. Yep.
How do you know which room you have entered?
Which
room you have entered?
Because you keep track.
Oh, it's encoded in E.
It's encoded in EI. Yes, you've got these red points. Other questions? Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So the algorithm essentially is
I'm not answering for the, it's a deterministic. We will come back, it will be clear. All right. So let me, before going to the peeling with target, let me go through the peeling process of Boltzmann maps. So that we get some, at least some probabilistic statements here. Okay, so Q, law of the peeling process. And the Boltzmann measure. So remember, we had this Boltzmann measure, and if Q is admissible, we can define the measure PL. What was the measure PL? It's the normalized measure on maps ML, which are maps, so that my root edge has a root face of perimeter 2L. Okay? And I put the weights for the inner faces. Okay, so now you fix A. Okay, let me do proposition. So fix L bigger than 1. Fix an algorithm A. Okay? And let us consider the exploration E0, E1, blah, 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 En, blah, 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 inside the map M. The exploration with algorithm A of the map M, and I'm under this measure. So I'm using canonical notation. My state space is, my generic element is always denoted by M, and I'm under the measure PL. So what can I say? I should also introduce denote Fn, the filtration generated by this exploration. So what can you say? You can say two things which are intimately related. First thing is what we call, yes? No? The spatial Markov property. So what is the spatial Markov property? It means that for any n bigger than 0, if you condition on En or Fn, the exploration so far, then the holes of En are filled in by independent Boltzmann maps with perimeter, the perimeter of the holes. So we flow P, let's say little pi's, where the pi's are the perimeter of the holes. By independent Boltzmann, okay. Okay, I will comment on that. And second point. Second point, which is really the point you should keep in mind. Second point, then this guy, EI, is a Markov chain. Is a Markov chain whose probability transitions are given as follows, such that, so conditionally on the exploration En and on the edge you want to explore, A of En. So remember, I give you my exploration so far. I tell you I want to open that door. Then I've got two events that can occur. So if little ln is the half perimeter of the holes of the hole to which A of En belongs. Then we have the event Ck appearing with probability, I will denote, I will write, and the event Gk1, K2 with probability, and let me write it now. So Ck happens with probability Qk, W of Ln plus K minus 1 divided by W of Ln, and Gk1, K2 appears with probability Wk1, Wk2 divided by W Ln. Of course, for K1 plus K2 plus 1, satisfying the compatibility relation being equal to Ln. All right. That's the proposition we want to prove. Yep.
You don't have to condition on A of En, because A is deterministic.
True. But soon I will be using a randomized algorithm. No, okay. True, but it's not a mistake. You can still. Yep.
First one, all that you explained till the beginning of the afternoon, since the beginning of the afternoon, sorry, it has nothing to do with the graphs being bipartite.
Nothing at all, except that you see here, I've got these numbers, which I computed yesterday, and I computed them in the bipartite case, and this is why we focus on the bipartite case, because we know how to compute these numbers.
My second question, so because the fact the total probability must be 1, this yields an identity between the
Wait, I'm going to write it here.
Okay. But we
Yeah.
had not seen that identity yesterday.
No, but it's here. Yes. Another question? So, as Rémi noticed, if this sums to probability transitions, that means, okay, the fact that this sums to 1, that there are probability transition, is equivalent to the fact that WL is equal to the sum of all k larger than 1 qk WL plus k minus 1 plus the sum of all k1 plus k2 is equal to L minus 1 of WK1, K2. That's exactly this identity, because if I divide the right-hand side by WL, I get exactly this. So what is this? This is exactly something that we already encountered, which is third equation. Indeed, assume you want to enumerate planar maps with a perimeter of size 2L. You want to count them. So you've got weights inside here. You say, oh, let me remove the root edge. So if I remove the root edge, I've got two different situations that can appear. Either after deleting the root edge, I've got a face of size 2k here, and I've got something else here. What is the weight of all of this? Well, here I need to put a weight qk for this face. And what is the perimeter of this map here? The perimeter of this map must be 2L plus 2k minus 2. So this, the total weight of those maps, is indeed the dispartition function for maps with boundary of half perimeter L plus k minus 1. Or the other possibility is, after the removal of the root edge, you disconnect the map into two parts. One of perimeter 2k1 and the other one of perimeter 2k2. of course, this 2k1 plus 2k2 plus 2 must be equal to 2L, which is exactly this condition. And what is the total weight of the maps here? It's W of k1, and the total weights of maps here, it's W of k2. So indeed, this is nothing but Tut's equation translated in a probabilistic language. Okay, so let's do the proof. The proof is actually almost trivial. Oh, well, trivial. Of course not, but we did everything so that it is trivial. Okay, I will write the formula later on. Okay. So let's prove this. And let's start with, let's see what happens after one step. So at step n is equal to 0, what do we have? We have this E0. Remember what is E0? E0, we have our map with a root edge, and we know that the root face, the face adjacent to the right of the root edge, has degree 2L. And E0 is just one red dot here. And so E0 is just one cycle of perimeter 2L and one hole on the outside here. That's E0. If you wish, that's the main room of your CAS. Okay, so clearly, what is the map filling in the whole of this E0? That's my whole map, M, and so M is indeed distributed as the Boltzmann distribution with low P of L, because this is what I started with. All right. So the spatial Markov property is true for n is equal to 0 trivially. Now let's see what is the probability that we see an event Ck at the first step. Okay, so you look at your map, E0, your algorithm is giving you one edge. I want to explore this edge, say. Okay? So let's assume that I have an event Ck. So what should the map M look like to be sure that I have an event Ck? So to see that, the map M should be of the following form. It should be, you've got the root edge, you've got your edge you want to explore, you want to put a face of 2k so that when you will explore this edge, you get to a new room of size 2k. And what is on the outside? Well, you can glue here, you can glue any map. Let's call this map M1. You can glue any map of the proper perimeter. So, should be obtained by gluing any map M1 with perimeter. So the perimeter should be 2L plus 2K minus 2 on the outside of this, right? So what is this probability? Well, let's compute it here. What is this probability? Okay, so the probability to see even Ck at step 0, at step 1, say, is equal to, okay, so my measure PL was obtained by normalizing the Boltzmann measure, so I normalize by 1 over Ln, and then I sum over all maps M, which are obtained by the thing I had here, plus a map M1 on the outside. I should sum the weight of those maps. But remember, the weight of a map like that is just the product of Q on the faces, Q on half degree of the faces. So the weight of such a map here must have a weight Qk for this face times the weight of the map on the outside, M1. Okay, that's by definition. This is, I remind you, this is because we do not count, we do not put a weight on the external face of our maps. Okay, so this is just 1 over WL Qk, and then the sum of all maps with the proper boundary length. Let me put a 1 here, WQ of M1. But what is this? This is just W of L plus K minus 1. So I get WL plus K minus 1 times Qk divided by WL. This is this. Right? So the probability to get the first step correct has the correct transition. Okay? But now, what can you say? Okay, what is the law of the map M1? So the map M1 is the map that I need to glue on the outside here. So the map filling in the hole here. What is the law of M1 conditionally on CK appearing? So assume I have CK and I want to compute the law of the map here. Anybody guess? Okay, so let's see the computation. CK at step 1 and M1 is equal to some fixed map B0. Then you don't get this product. Here you just get Qk times the weight of B0. And so you can write this as WL plus K minus 1, 1 over WL plus K minus 1 times WK of B0. And this, you interpret this as the normalized probability measure, PL plus K minus 1 of B0. Right? So the law of M1 conditionally on CK is just your Boltzmann distribution with the proper perimeter. Okay? So that proves that the probability to have step CK has the correct transition, and that conditionally on this transition appearing, the map filling in the hole has the good law, which is just the law of the Boltzmann distribution with the correct perimeter. Okay? So you could do exactly the same computation if you replace CK by GK1, K2. Same computation, and I leave it as an exercise. Very interesting exercise for you to see that this is again correct, meaning that GK1, K2 has the correct probability transition, and that conditionally on GK1, K2 appearing, the maps filling in the two holes are independent with law PK1 and PK2. All right? All right, but what did I prove for you? I proved that if I do one step of exploration, then this is true. But then I can iterate because the holes are independent, and so I can iterate this property inside each of the holes, and this you get it for free. Okay? sorry, this, you get it for free, and you prove this in the same time. Okay? Questions? So, to summarize, yes, okay. Okay, I'll keep the exploration with target for the next course so that we got a recap on the peeling exploration. But I know it is complicated to understand. It's really easy to draw when you know what to draw. And so I encourage you to try to do the exercise that I have in the lecture notes to get accustomed with the pinning exploration. Second, you can go to the website of Timothy Budd. So there is an internet address in the lecture notes, so that you can play. He has a very nice software where you can play with the pinning process, where you can glue edges and so on. So really play deterministically with what is the exploration process. And third, really I encourage you to try to do the proof for this GK1, K2. Try hard. If you don't manage, you come to see me, you come to see Armand, you come to see Thomas, or maybe Jean-François, he has understood something, might be. And we can help you, because if you don't know how to do this computation, that means that you have not fully understood that it is totally trivial. Okay. And third take-home message is, so we have this procedure of deterministically exploring a map, and this procedure turns out, when you put it under the Boltzmann measure, to turn the process into a Markov chain with this very easy probability transition. Okay, let me make now a remark. A remark that will lead us next course to introduce a random walk. So assume you're under PL with L very large, very, very large. Okay? What does that mean? That means that you have a map with a very large boundary here. Your map is here. So your algorithm takes for you an edge, and you explore that edge. So either you explore a face like that with degree 2k, or it turns out that this edge is actually glued to this one, and so when you explore from here, you go back to the same room. So that's an event which is K1, K2. So let's see what happens to the perimeter of my map during such an event. So you start with a half perimeter L, and if you have event CK, your perimeter becomes L plus K minus 1, right? Because before you had perimeter L, and you had this bubble of size 2K, so that means that the perimeter increased by 2K minus 2, so the half perimeter increased by K minus 1. Okay? But what is the case if you have an event, let's say GK1? What should be the other one? The other one should be K2, but K1 plus K2 plus minus 1, sorry, is equal to L. So the other one must be L minus K1 minus 1. And let's assume that K1 is very, very small compared to L. That means your boundary is very, very large. But if you produce an event like that, suppose that this little bubble is small compared to this very large perimeter. And let's compute the variation of this perimeter. So now the new perimeter is L minus K1 minus 1. Oh, but you can also have the opposite event where if you explore an edge, the bubble, an edge, and this edge is here, and it actually goes through here, then the bubble is on your right-hand side. So if you have an event of L minus K2 minus 1 K2, where K2 is small, again, you've got a variation of L minus K2 minus 1. Okay, so that's the variation of a very large boundary under a pinning step. What is the probability to see this? Well, it's still on the board. It's W of L plus K minus 1 divided by WL times QK. And now, remember the strong ratio that I erased, the strong ratio that we proved, that was here, that we proved yesterday. The strong ratio, let me write it here, so that it's totally random where I write. Strong ratio tells you that the ratio of a WL versus WL plus 1 goes to 4 times ZQ. And let's, for convenience, I'm sorry, I know I introduced a lot of notation, let's call that CQ. So what is asymptotically this guy? This guy asymptotically is just CQ to the K plus K minus 1. Again, here, what are the probability of this transition? This transition appears with probability WK1 divided by WL minus K1 minus 1 divided by WL, still on the board here. If you apply again the strong ratio theorem here, you see that this is behaving like CQ to the minus K1 minus 1. All right? So you want to say, and this will be our motto next time, you want to say that, so it's a heuristic quote, you want to say that the half perimeter of a big hole evolves as follows. It does plus k with probability q k plus 1 cq minus cqk. It's just a shift here. And it does minus k with probability w minus k, I said, huh? Minus q minus 1 cq minus k, which is the probability of there. Again, there is a shift. Okay? Okay. With a 2 here. Why? Because this jump of minus k could appear by having a bubble, small bubble on your left or a small bubble on your right. And so we will see next time that this is actually new. That's a distribution on Z given by that, which is a random walk, which is the distribution of a random walk, sorry. And this random walk is exactly how the perimeter of a big hole evolves when you do the pinning process. Okay? And so next time, I will come back on the pinning process and I'll do the same thing as here for the target version, which is an easy version from that. And then we'll focus on this random walk. Because now that we've got our Markov chain, let me tell you the end of the story, what is going in episode 4 and 5. Now that we have a Markov chain, we see that this Markov chain is really closely related to a random walk. And so if we want to define infinite maps, we want to say, we will run this Markov chain and this Markov chain will never die. And so this will be related to the problem of conditioning random walks to stay positive. You have a random walk, and you don't want the random walk to die, to become negative. And there is a bunch of theory about that, and we'll see that it really depends on this new distribution, whether the random walk oscillates, whether the random walk drifts to plus infinity or to minus infinity. And so I will need to go through fluctuation theory for random walks. So for those who don't care about planar maps, you can come next time and learn, I hope, something about one-dimensional integer random walks, how to condition them to stay positive. And then we will use that to come back with the pinning process and to say, but we can define infinite maps just by mimicking what we did for random walks. And then we'll study those guys. Thanks.